They called it the Dead Sea, a place where nothing survives. Yet beneath its surface, beneath the silence and salt, lies a secret older than empires. For centuries, this land has been written off as lifeless. But what if the world's quietest place once held the heartbeat of a forgotten civilization? The air here feels heavy, almost sacred. Heat shimmers on the horizon like memory taking form. The ground cracks underfoot, white with salt, but inside those fractures lie fragments of a story time could not fully erase. This was once a thriving corridor between worlds, a place of trade, worship, and survival against impossible odds. Long before the Dead Sea became a symbol of desolation, people gathered around its shores. They built homes of stone and faith, carving existence from dust. They understood the harshness of their land, yet they stayed, perhaps drawn by something deeper than survival. The mineral-rich waters, the salt trade, the strange power of a sea that could hold you afloat but never let you drink. Archaeologists once believed no life could have endured here, but as the desert began to yield its secrets, their certainty began to crack. Beneath layers of salt and sediment, they found signs. Traces of walls, shards of pottery, the faint outlines of roads that once led somewhere. The earth, it seems, remembers what history forgets. Who were these people who lived where life was not meant to be? Traders, prophets, wanderers, or perhaps a community set apart, seeking purity in isolation? No records remain to name them, yet the remnants of their existence speak with quiet persistence. Every fragment unearthed whispers the same defiance: we were here. The Dead Sea has always been a paradox, both cradle and grave. It preserves and destroys, holds and consumes. Those who lived beside it must have understood this delicate balance. They learned to draw water from stone, to build where the earth resisted. They turned salt into currency, trade into survival. In this unlikely wasteland, they mastered the art of endurance. And then, without warning, they vanished. No chronicles, no monuments of kings, only ruins swallowed by time. Their silence became the sea's silence, vast, unbroken, eternal. What remains is the outline of a story that refuses to die, waiting beneath the salt crust for someone to listen. Perhaps that is why this place still pulls us in, not for what it shows, but for what it hides. The Dead Sea does not shout its history, it whispers. And those whispers echo across the centuries, asking questions that have no simple answers. What does it mean for a civilization to disappear? Is it truly lost if the land itself remembers? The more we uncover, the deeper the mystery grows. Some believe this was a settlement of salt miners or traders. Others imagined a hidden sect, a people seeking divine purity, removed from the corruption of cities. Whatever their truth, they built something enduring enough to outlast memory. Even buried in salt, their presence lingers like a faint pulse beneath the surface. Here, everything moves slowly, even decay. The Dead Sea changes form, but never disappears. Its waters retreat, its shoreline shifts, yet the essence of what once lived here remains. It is as if the land itself refuses to let go, holding fragments of human history in a grip of crystal and dust. Beneath the salt lies a reminder that nothing truly vanishes. Every grain is a record, every silence a testimony. The sea does not speak, but it remembers. And through it, so do we. Once this was not a place of endings, but of beginnings. The Dead Sea was never dead. It was alive with voices, prayers, and footsteps that still echo through the earth. And though time has covered them in silence, the story beneath remains, waiting for light, waiting for discovery, waiting to be heard again.
In the heart of the desert, where the land burns white beneath an unbroken sky, a small people once defied nature itself. They chose exile over comfort, silence over cities, and built a world the sands were never meant to hold. For centuries, their story lay hidden beneath the same dust they once walked, until fragments of parchment began to speak again. Who were these people who challenged the desert? The scrolls call them seekers of purity, watchers of prophecy. But the world knew them only by what they left behind, a settlement near Qumran, carved from stone, disciplined and precise. Each wall, each stair, each vessel told of order, ritual, and purpose. This was not the chaos of nomads, this was design. The Dead Sea did not forgive easily, yet they stayed, year after year, generation after generation. They understood water as a sacred gift and salt as a covenant with the earth. They bathed in ritual silence, studied the stars, and waited for signs written not in ink, but in light and wind. Their days began with prayer and ended in study, and in between, they built, not temples of gold, but of stone and discipline. Some believed they were the Essenes, a brotherhood that turned away from Jerusalem's corruption. Others say they were something far older, a remnant of ancient prophets who guarded knowledge only for the faithful. Whoever they were, they saw the desert not as a punishment, but as a test. To live here was to walk between worlds, between life and extinction, purity and dust. Archaeologists found pools carved deep into the rock, mikvahs, ritual baths for purification. They found jars sealed with care, rooms lined with benches, pottery fragments marked with hands that shaped them for purpose, not for trade. Nothing here spoke of luxury, everything spoke of devotion. It was as though they sought to live on the edge of the world, closer to the divine by denying the earth. And yet for all their order, their fate remained chaos. No bones, no graves, no trace of a final day. Only silence and the scrolls, sealed in caves, like messages to a future that might never come. Those scrolls would outlive empires. They would travel through wars, museums, and vaults, dividing scholars and believers alike. But here, in the time of their writing, they were an act of faith, an attempt to preserve what the desert could not take. Words against oblivion, ink against eternity. Perhaps they foresaw what was coming, the growing power of Rome, the fall of Jerusalem, the fire that would swallow their world. Maybe they sealed their words because they knew they would not survive to speak them. Maybe they hoped someone, somewhere, would one day unseal the silence. In these ruins, time feels thin, as though one could still hear the rustle of parchment, the hum of prayer, the sound of a life built against extinction. The wind carries their memory, brushing across the same stones that once framed their walls. Nothing here lasts, yet everything remembers. They challenged the desert, and for a time, they won. They built knowledge where others saw emptiness, turned faith into architecture, turned silence into scripture. But in the end, the desert always wins. It buries, it guards, it waits. Still, what they left behind endures, not in cities or monuments, but in the fragile strength of words. Their civilization may have vanished, but their voice remains inked across time. And beneath the salt, beneath the silence, that voice still whispers, "We lived where life should not have been possible."
For nearly 2,000 years, the desert kept its silence. Then, one afternoon in 1947, that silence was broken, not by a scholar or an explorer, but by a boy, a shepherd, chasing a stray goat across the cliffs of Qumran, hurled a stone into a dark hollow. What came back was not an echo, but the sound of pottery shattering, and with that sound, history cracked open. Inside that cave were jars, sealed tight against time. Within them, brittle rolls of parchment and leather, inked by hands long turned to dust. The first scrolls were fragile, almost weightless, yet they carried the gravity of an entire lost world. The shepherd sold them for a few coins, unaware he had awakened one of the greatest archaeological mysteries ever unearthed. When archaeologists arrived, the desert revealed more. 11 caves in total, each sheltering manuscripts written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. Some were nearly complete, others were fragments, no larger than the palm of a hand. Together they spoke of law, prophecy, and cosmic order. They told stories both familiar and strange, versions of Genesis, Isaiah, and Psalms that mirrored the sacred texts known to billions, yet carried differences too precise to ignore. The scrolls should not have survived. The heat, the salt, the centuries of storms, all should have erased them. But the caves of Qumran had kept them safe, as though the earth itself had decided to remember what mankind had forgotten. For archaeologists, this was not just a discovery, it was a resurrection. As scholars studied the texts, a deeper mystery unfolded. The handwriting differed from cave to cave, suggesting not one scribe, but generations of writers. Ink analysis revealed recipes mixed with minerals from the Dead Sea itself. Their parchment was prepared with rituals of purity, washed, scraped, and sanctified before a single letter was written. These were not mere documents, they were acts of devotion, bound by a belief that words could outlast empires. But with discovery came dispute. Were these truly the writings of the Essenes, the desert sect known for ascetic life and sacred study? Or did they belong to something larger, perhaps a forgotten movement that shaped both Judaism and the birth of Christianity? Each scroll offered evidence. None gave certainty. The more scholars learned, the less they could agree. In the smoky archives of Jerusalem and the private vaults of collectors, fragments changed hands, smuggled and studied, fought over and lost again. Nations laid claim to them, religions weighed their meaning, and under it all lingered the same haunting question: why were these words hidden, and what truth were they meant to protect? As translation progressed, patterns appeared. Texts spoke of an approaching war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. They spoke of purification, of a teacher of righteousness betrayed by those in power. They spoke of a final covenant, one that would be renewed only after the world's corruption was purged by fire. To some, these were the voices of prophecy. To others, they were political manifestos wrapped in mysticism. But to everyone who read them, they carried an unmistakable echo, the sound of conviction written at the edge of extinction. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls reshaped history, but it also revealed how little we truly know. For all the translations, for all the analysis, their greatest secret may not lie in what they say, but in how they survived. Because survival in this place is defiance. Ink and parchment should crumble in a world of salt and heat, and yet they endured, silent witnesses waiting for a future that could finally listen. Even now, as scholars piece together their meaning, the air around Qumran feels charged, as if memory itself refuses to fade. What other truths lie sealed in the rock? What other voice?
Beneath the quiet skin of the desert, time still breathes. For decades, archaeologists believed they had found all there was to find: the scrolls, the caves, the remnants of a vanished brotherhood. But the ground beneath Qumran held more stories than parchment could tell. When scientists returned with new tools, ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, and chemical analysis, the sand began to whisper again. Under the salt and clay, they discovered traces of something unexpected. Tunnels that followed no natural line,
chambers cut with unnatural precision and layers of ash sealed beneath untouched strata. Whatever happened here was deliberate, an act of concealment, not collapse. The deeper they looked, the clearer it became that this civilization had not only hidden its writings, but its very foundations. Some of the tunnels led nowhere. Others ended in chambers that showed no sign of use, no bones, no lamps, no writing. Yet the walls bore faint carvings, circles within circles, lines intersecting like celestial maps. When the light hit at certain angles, the shapes resembled constellations once sacred to early desert astronomers. To the scholars who studied them, it felt less like architecture and more like communication, symbols meant to be found only when the world was ready to listen. The ancients of Qumran seemed to believe in duality, purity and corruption, light and darkness, survival and ruin. Their rituals spoke of cleansing through water, but their scrolls spoke of cleansing through fire. One purified the body, the other the world. It was as if they lived suspended between faith and foreknowledge, aware that their time would end, yet determined to sanctify it through order and meaning. Among the artifacts uncovered were shards coated in crystalline salt, etched with patterns too fine to be decoration. Under magnification, some formed grids that mirrored astronomical alignments from 2,000 years ago. Were these measurements, calendars, or codes left to preserve knowledge beyond language itself? No one could say, but their precision defied coincidence. To some researchers, these findings confirmed what the scrolls had already hinted, that this was no isolated sect of ascetics, but a civilization guided by mathematics and prophecy. They mapped the stars not for curiosity, but for warning. Every symbol, every structure, every ritual pointed to a single obsession, preparation for an ending they believed had already been written. One of the most haunting discoveries came from beneath a collapsed chamber near the southern ridge, a sealed crypt of pure salt. Inside, scientists found fragments of bone, wrapped not in cloth, but in thin sheets of mineral crust. The bones belonged to no child, no elder, but to a man of middle age, unmarked by disease or violence. Buried beside him was a small clay tablet, its surface carved with words so eroded that only one phrase could be read. The teacher has returned to the dust. To believers, it was confirmation of the sect's own mythology, a leader who vanished before the fall, perhaps the same teacher of righteousness described in the scrolls. To skeptics, it was coincidence, the result of poetic imagination meeting incomplete evidence. Yet the unease remained. The more the scientists uncovered, the more the site resisted final answers. Every discovery seemed to widen the mystery rather than close it. What if the scrolls were not simply scripture, but signals? What if the caves were not just hiding places, but archives built for a future civilization, ours, to find when the time was right? The thought lingers like heat over stone. The ancients who lived by the Dead Sea may have known they were writing their own extinction, sealing warnings in the very dust that would preserve them. Beneath the desert, the wind still sighs through cracks and caverns, carrying a faint mineral breath, a reminder that the earth remembers what the living forget. Every layer of salt, every silent chamber, every unbroken seal holds the same unspoken truth, that perhaps knowledge was never lost here, only hidden deep enough to outlast our understanding. And as scientists step carefully across the ruins of Qumran, listening to the wind where voices once prayed, one question endures. Did they foresee the world's end, or only their own?
No one knows how it ended. Not the scholars, not the archaeologists, not the endless procession of believers who still look toward the Dead Sea for mourning. Perhaps it was a flood, the kind that leaves no witness. Perhaps an earthquake swallowed what the desert could not. Or perhaps the silence came first, slow and absolute, a divine withdrawal that left an entire people standing on the edge of time. What remains of them is not ruin, but residue, fragments of belief, ritual, and warning. The scrolls, the bones, the salt, all speak of a civilization that knew how fragile existence could be. They prepared for it, studied it, and perhaps even embraced it. Their writings echo with anticipation, not fear. They did not seek immortality through monuments or conquest, but through the endurance of meaning. When the Roman legions marched across Judea, they destroyed what could be seen. But what could be hidden, words sealed in jars, knowledge etched into the very geography of the desert, survived. In that survival lies the brilliance of the Dead Sea civilization. They understood that to preserve truth, one must first let go of power. And so, when destruction came, they disappeared, leaving only what mattered most. For 2,000 years, the desert guarded their memory. Then modern hands began to disturb the sand, unearthing not only relics, but responsibility. As scientists and linguists deciphered the scrolls, the boundaries between history and prophecy began to blur. Among the final fragments, new lines emerged, cryptic, incomplete, yet hauntingly familiar. When the salt returns to the valley, the fire shall remember the sky. What did it mean? Was it metaphor? A poetic farewell to a dying world? Or was it a warning, cast into time for us to find when the world once again approached its edge? Interpretations multiplied, each shaped by faith, by politics, by the quiet hunger for revelation. But the truth, as always, lay in the spaces between the words. Modern analysis has revealed something extraordinary. The Dead Sea Scrolls were not written all at once. The ink, the parchment, the script, all belong to different decades, perhaps even generations. That means this civilization endured far longer than anyone imagined, passing their mission hand to hand, line to line, as if their survival depended not on strength, but remembrance. They wrote so that someone, someday, might read what they could not live to see. And that someone, it seems, is us. Today, fragments still lie sealed in vaults, pieces of parchment no wider than a thumb, each containing the breath of a civilization that refused to be erased. Artificial intelligence now scans their depths, revealing hidden letters invisible to the human eye. With each recovered word, the voice of the Dead Sea people grows clearer and closer. Across time, they speak not of conquest, but of continuity. Their prophecy was never about the end of the world. It was about the endurance of truth in a world that forgets too easily. The Dead Sea, that mirror of extinction, still glows under the weight of the sun. Its waters retreat year by year, leaving sinkholes and salt scars where once there was life. And in that retreat lies a strange reflection, as if the land itself continues the story of those who vanished beside it. Nature too remembers the silence they left behind. Perhaps their disappearance was not failure, but fulfillment. To vanish completely is to become untouchable, to exist only in memory and in meaning. They gave the world a testament, not of who they were, but of what they believed. That knowledge, once written, belongs not to its authors, but to time itself. So the people of the Dead Sea may be gone, but their prophecy endures, carved in salt, ink, and silence. Each word, each fragment, each rediscovered line becomes part of a larger truth, that civilizations perish, but the longing for purpose does not. And as the modern world looks again upon this dying sea,
Surrounded by ruins and riddles, the ancient warning seems to rise once more from the salt. What we preserve defines what we become, and what we forget, the earth will remember.
The wind still moves through the desert, the same wind that once carried the whispers of prophets and scribes, the same wind that scattered their ashes and covered their words in dust. It moves softly now, across the hollow cliffs of Qumran, where time itself seems to hold its breath. Here, silence is not absence. It is presence, a weight, a memory, an echo that refuses to fade. The caves are empty, but their stillness speaks. Every crack in the rock, every grain of salt beneath the sun, feels like an unfinished sentence. For centuries, the Dead Sea Scrolls slept beneath this silence. They did not call for discovery, they waited for it. And when they were finally found, the world was not the same world their writers knew. We had machines, satellites, wars, and doubts they could not imagine. Yet their words reached us, not through conquest or empire, but through endurance. The silence that remains is not just theirs, it is ours. Because when we read their fragments, we confront the truth that every civilization, even ours, is built on borrowed time. We too will leave behind pieces of who we were, scattered and incomplete, hoping someone will understand. Archaeologists sift the soil, scientists scan the parchment, linguists reconstruct meaning from broken letters, but none of them can answer the question that hums beneath every discovery. Why were these words preserved when so much else was lost? Perhaps because they were never meant for the people who wrote them. Perhaps they were meant for us, for an age drowning in noise, to remind us that wisdom often survives in silence. The ancients understood something we have forgotten, that truth does not shout, it waits. As the modern world grows louder, the desert remains unchanged, vast, indifferent, eternal. The Dead Sea itself is shrinking, its waters receding year by year, exposing new caverns where more secrets may still sleep. The earth continues to reveal, but it also reminds. Everything revealed must one day return to dust. And yet, not all is lost, for even in their disappearance, the people of the Dead Sea achieved what few ever do. They became timeless. Their words crossed millennia, not by power, but by patience. They entrusted their truth to the only guardian that never dies, the silence of the earth. In the end, their story is not about the apocalypse they feared, but about endurance, the kind that outlives destruction. The scrolls do not predict our end, they ask us what we choose to remember. They remind us that every civilization must decide which truths it will bury and which it will preserve. Somewhere, deep beneath the salt and sand, there may still be another jar, sealed, forgotten, waiting. Perhaps inside it lies a final message, one that completes the story we've only begun to understand. But maybe we are not ready to read it yet. Maybe that too is part of the plan. The camera drifts above the Dead Sea, a mirror of light and loss. The horizon blurs into mist. For a moment, nothing moves. Only the faint hum of wind, the same whisper that carried across centuries, speaks again. Not in words, but in feeling. A quiet reminder. Everything sacred is fragile. Everything lost can still be found. And everything forgotten waits for the right silence to be heard again. The screen fades slowly to black. And in that fading, in that final quiet, the story completes itself. Not with an ending, but with an echo. The Dead Sea still breathes. The scrolls still whisper.